So, welcome to the What is Really Brewing podcast, where entrepreneurs open up about what's actually happening behind the scenes in their business. So, we're going to talk about real journey stuff. We're going to talk about the highs, the lows, which seems to happen more than the highs, identity battles, and what's brewing internally inside of a business. So, this show is really going to consist of the whole point is to build a community of entrepreneurs and founders who connect through honesty, struggle, and growth. And like, that's the goal, right? I struggle with that. Pretty much every entrepreneur I talk to struggles with that. So that's the purpose of the podcast, really build a community around that. So today's very first guest is Jake Zufelt, founder of Weldwood Marketing and, of course, Weldwood Publishing, and Digital Marketing Sucks publisher or author of that book. He helps businesses grow through digital marketing and also not sucking at digital marketing and not sucking at business. Known him, we all both started in the space at the same time. Thought he was a perfect first guest. That's it for my intro. He could tell you more about himself, but Jake, appreciate it, man.
Dude, I appreciate you having me, man. Love the concept of what you're doing, the authenticity, which is lacking severely in business.
Honored
to be here, man.
In the day of AI, authenticity.
In the day, dude, not even just the day of AI. I mean, go to any marketing conference, business conference, real estate conference, and like just the posturing at these events. I was on a panel recently at a marketing conference, a pretty big one. I was pretty honored to be there. Someone that asked the question used it to plug their business. God. They were like, can you tell me what you guys do for bookkeeping? Because and they just filled in this whole thing, and everybody in the room knew what was going on. It was really awkward. So no, man, I love that you're creating space for these conversations. Love the logo, by the way.
Yes, sir.
Love the logo. I did bring a coffee with me because it is 10 o'clock here on the West Coast. And I felt like drinking a beer wasn't a great public gesture at 10 o'clock on a business podcast. So.
Well, it doesn't matter. Who gives a fuck?
Well, it
dropped the first F-bomb on the episode.
That's congratulations on your first fuck. That's great. Have I ever had one in a tailgating situation for University of Oregon for a noon game? Yes. But it's Wednesday, Jordan.
It's hump day.
I'm going to behave myself.
Well, I had to go to my coffee shop upstairs in my kitchen.
I'm working on it at the studio.
With a nice espresso machine. But I think the goal is to eventually bring guests on and send them my best coffee that I love.
I love that.
Which is Carpe Diem Italian roast.
I looked it up.
It is some of the best coffee on the planet. I still think it's the best coffee on the planet. I don't care. But
challenge
you know what?
Accepted. Because I got some. Oregon is known. We're known for our coffee. So challenge accepted. I'll see what I can get you. There's a coffee shop opening here that has their roastery is like 20 minutes away. A different town, but it's pretty damn good stuff. So I like it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna need to fly out there too. That's another thing. That's on my list. That's on my list to do. Well, so tell me a little bit about the entrepreneur journey. So talk to me about Weldwood Marketing. Like, I know where it started. I know a lot of the stories, but I need other people to hear because I think it's great, especially where you started from.
Yeah.
And out in the shack behind the home,
the bread shed.
Yeah, give me the origin story.
The shed quarters. So Weldwood Marketing started on the simple premise of I was tired of watching business owners get taken advantage of, especially in the digital marketing space, which is entirely unregulated. It is completely, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like, no one is policing this industry. And so it's not hard to build a website, tell people you're a professional at this, that, or the other thing. You know, you're a professional social media manager because you're on your phone all the time, whatever. Right. So I was watching this happening and it really bothered me. And so got into the space and very quickly, hit my first goal. And I was at my dining room table. I had a laptop I was using that was dented because I dropped it on the way to a client meeting, which was awesome. And eventually moved out to the shed in my backyard. It was my shed quarters and I still miss that shed. It was amazing. So today is a pretty cool day for me because this is my first podcast in the actual Weldwood World headquarters, which is a 1940s lawyer's office. I've got the guy up there and his secretary. And so I'm in the studio right now and this is the first podcast. So went from the shed to the basement on a river in my new house, which is also awesome. But it was just time. It was time to get a building to use for in-person meetings, for trainings, for all kinds of different scenarios. And so Weldwood Marketing turned into Weldwood Publishing, which turned into Weldwood Media. And I had this really cool aha moment where I was sitting down having coffee with one of the founders of Aviation Gin, which is a nationally known brand now because Ryan Reynolds ended up purchasing it. And this guy, he was not the founder, but he was one of the guys that came in and turned it into what it became and eventually sold. And just an incredibly encouraging guy. And he said, dude, you have such an interesting little universe there with all these little planets that you've got the marketing and the publishing and the this and the that. And I was like, oh my God, that is such a great image for it. So we actually renamed the parent company Weldwood Universe because I am a child. And I thought it was funny. And so Weldwood Universe is actually the name of it now. And we've got Weldwood Foundation for doing grant writing for businesses and partnerships there and different things like that. And so, that's a very quick version of the last, almost 6 years now. I'm a problem, Jordan. Those around me know this. Like, I get an idea, and some of it was interesting, actually. I had this conversation with my chat GPT the other day. I said, why do I do what I do? Based on all the things you know about me, chat GPT. I don't have a name for my chat GPT like a lot of people do. And they said something interesting. They said, you have a desire to create things that weren't there when you needed them. You have a desire to create things for people and for like your kids, which I thought was really cool. It really spoke to me. Is like, you're trying to create things for people because that's what you do. You can't not create. You can't stop creating as a musician, as a whatever shit I get into. But I thought that was really cool. And that really spoke to me. And it was funny to get encouragement from like a AI robot.
So it's my buddy. So I refer to.
You refer to ChatGPT as your buddy?
Yeah, I don't have a name, but we have conversations on a daily basis. Like when you're in this space, right, and you're in the marketing space, most people are remote. You ain't got nobody. Even if you have a team of folks, you ain't got nobody to talk to during the day. It sucks. It sucks. I'm like, I hate people like, oh, it must be great working from home. I said the only benefit, beside like the biggest benefit I have over teaching over 15 years of being a band director is I get to go to the bathroom when I want to, and it's right there.
I knew you were going to say that.
That is the big. Somebody goes, what's the best thing about going from entrepreneurship from teaching? I get to go to the bathroom when I want.
Whenever you want, man.
Whenever I want, and multiple times a day, and I don't have to ask. Like, I don't have to like find class coverage or get there early to go take a
do love that you have the trombone in the background.
Yeah,
as just a nod to your history and where you came from with it. I love it.
Yeah. And what's amazing is I was speaking with a client the other day, and we were talking about leadership because that's lacking in most businesses.
Sure.
That's something that I was very good at, was like leadership. So we took a lot of what I learned as an educator, because like I've got a master's degree in educational leadership, woohoo, whatever. But what I took and learned from teaching kids how to be leaders and grow a band program, like how to be a leader within there, how to do direct, conflict resolution, how do you drop your ego, all these things that you need to do that we don't do good as adults. I would teach kids this. And so I translated it all into business. And so one of the best things I'm able to do is just teach people how to be a freaking leader. And like, that's one of the things that we're going to head the direction of is teach leadership inside business. Cause I think a lot of people we deal with fall into business, like, yeah,
100%.
Oh, I fell into this. So they don't ever think about the operations of the business. They don't think about like, how do I build culture? I think that's one of the things that we're going to tack on.
I like that a lot.
But everything I learned as a band director and as a teacher is translated well into business. You'd be surprised how many educators can hop into the business side and go.
I'm not, because I have two that work for me.
They did it.
And their attention to detail, their ability to structure things, it's huge. They're trained in curriculum development, right? Which is SOPs. It's very innate for them.
Well, and you can go to plan E, F, and G really fast.
For sure. Yeah.
That's the one thing
with adults. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, well, plan A, B, and C are gone. We're going to F and G, and that's how we're going to roll with this.
I love it.
That's how it works.
Are you sad you left teaching before 6-7 became a thing?
Not at all. Because I have to deal with it at home every day.
I coach basketball. I coach kids basketball. And I let them. I mean, it's like halftime, whatever, like right before the start. It's like, all right, you're 6-7 on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 6-7. My kids are like, hey, Dad, what's 6 in Spanish? I'm like, you're like, we're not gonna go here.
6.
And you're like,
7 in Spanish.
How to count in 6-8.
Yeah, we're gonna learn math. I can't. Honestly, I hope my kids do band. They're not that big athletes because I'm not an athlete, and I'm looking forward to that day. That's why the trombone's really out, is to be able to play. They hear me play, but I don't ever get over there to play.
I keep guitars out at the house, not the really expensive ones, because I want the kid, and they've started to adapt to it. But I have a similar fear I think of it as like, I don't want to force them into it. I want them to actually do it and enjoy it and things like that. And so it's interesting, but yeah.
So tell me this: everybody has dark days from the beginning. Like, well, I say that dark days keep coming back. They recur.
They do.
But the early dark days, what kept you from just going, I quit, and it's time to find something besides coffee? Coffee usually gets us through it. But what kept you from saying, I quit?
I did quit at one point. I quit for 2 weeks early on. And it was probably one of the best decisions I made. I had an opportunity that I was really, really excited about. And come to find out, the business owner had 50% equity in the business, and the other business owner was not interested. And that hit me really hard, and I don't quite know why, but it was pretty early on, and it forced me to reevaluate the why I was doing some of the stuff that I was doing, and also just who I wanted to work with. And it was a big education for me. And so I took 2 weeks off from prospecting, from I had a handful of clients I was taking care of at the time, but this was years and years and years ago. And I don't have the luxury per se of doing that. I have taken, 2 weeks off because I have staff now. But even then, like it's still so mentally there. I think a lot of it was I wasn't afraid of losing. And I'm still not totally afraid of like losing the whole thing. And that is it's kind of unfair, I think, because I didn't grow up with a lot for years. I worked, we've had this conversation a couple of times. I was a pastor for 10 years, and not a lead pastor. So, I was making bank, man. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to not have a lot, and we were fine. We were happy as a family. We have friends, a lot of those friends are still around. I think that some of it is and I'm still just not afraid to lose. I still have bank rejection letters hanging on the wall in my office at home because I think they're funny. And I have a weird sense of humor. Like there's something about that as a business owner when you're willing to jump in with both feet. And then the other part of it too, man, I notice this different, and this isn't, we're in marketing, for God's sakes, we have to generalize. People with kids approach business a little bit differently, I think. And my wife said something the other day I thought was amazing. She said, they tether you to integrity. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a line. She goes, there's just certain things I'm not going to do. I'm not going to react online and put something in writing that my kids someday might see and be like, man, I can't believe my dad said that. That was so disrespectful to the person that they were in an argument with, right? There's something about that. And so that's the other part of it, of just the no quit in me, is like, dude, I got kids to take care of, not just financially, but emotionally and with integrity, to show them like, hey, dad's had really bad days. And I've had the kids even in the last year be like, Dad, it doesn't seem like you're having as much fun as you used to have in business. I'm like, you're right. It is not that fun. And they're like, you used to have more fun. I'm like, yeah, I did. You're totally right. But we're going to keep going. One of my staff has line all the time. He says, we're going to go hard in the paint. He's like a 6'5" dude, played basketball. And he goes, we're going to go hard in the paint. Right. And so I think that some of that no quit is like, I got people to answer to. And it's not just my clients, it's my kids, and they're little and they're watching and they're seeing the way that dad reacts to difficult situations or difficult clients or, months where the numbers aren't lining up the way that I hope to. And seeing the way that it affects my mood and affects the way that I do things outside of work. Right. And so again, unwilling to, or I guess I should say willing to lose. I'm willing to lose, man. Yeah. I'm willing to lose. And then I got to set an example. I got to set an example for my kids.
Let me ask you this. It's not a knock on parenting back in the day. When we grew up, because we're not far off from age, play it safe.
Yeah.
Play it, get a good job,
go to college, get a degree.
Play it safe.
Play it safe.
What has something changed about how you want to teach your kids about, like, here's my thought. This is why I'm going to ask a question. I want my kids to understand that college isn't everything and entrepreneurship to be a real thing for them. Because it would have never crossed my mind to just run a business. Like, never in my brain was I like, I'm going to run a marketing company.
Nor was it taught in your school per se.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what has I want to say your why has changed. I feel like it's going to always stay consistent with family, but like, what is it about entrepreneurship that you're going to instill in your kids, even if it's not the same thing we got? How do I want to pose the question? When you grew up, how much does it change the way you parent being an entrepreneur? I guess let's say that, and what you're stealing opportunities for your kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I came from, a single parent home for the majority of my upbringing. And, just watching my mom really hustle. Like, I still don't know how she did it. I have no idea how she made ends meet. And she'll tell you to this day, she's like, I don't really know how I did it either. Now, we had a community. I grew up in Alaska, and there's just an innate sense of community there, taking care of each other. And it was definitely that way, in the 90s as well, where, you'd hypothetically, I may have, driven my car into like a snow berm a couple times, and like three people would stop and like offer to pull me out. Like, so there was an innate sense of community that I grew up with. It's just what you did. It wasn't even a question, right? You didn't judge somebody's background or whatever it was. Like, you just helped. And that was really important for me. And so I still very much, and you and I had this conversation prior to hitting record here, is like, there's been times when we've just like done work for somebody because we knew how to do it and it took a couple minutes and it was helpful and we didn't invoice them and whatever. Like, you just take care of each other, right? That's irrelevant of education. We're just gonna do that. Now, the other side of it, I would say, is I was introduced to this concept early in my career of just being a lifelong learner. And that was not something it wasn't like it was frowned upon, but it was something no one talked about. It was like your education was the end goal. And what was interesting too is your life is segmented in really 4-year chunks, right? You got 4 years of high school, you got 4 years of college generally, and then you get into your career. And at that point, you're in your late 20s, and now it's time to start a family, right? Like, that was just the expectation that you had with it. And so something I'm trying to communicate to my kids now is like, hey, I always want you learning. And I'll give them the example all the time and go, I'm from a generation that remembers when the internet came into our house and when computers came into our house and when phones came into our life. I remember life before that, right? And so what I do now for a living didn't exist then. And I tell my kids all the time, I go, you're going to retire from a job that doesn't exist yet. I just want you to be aware of that. So whether it's going to college or university, and there's more benefits to university than just the education you get there, right? I've experienced that myself. There's just certain elements of growing up or, sociological development, whatever it is. Okay. The mistake I made was going to a university that was like stupid expensive. I don't want to do that. I'm going to discourage my kids heavily from that. But I think that that's the biggest element that I'm trying to instill in my kids, and they're young. Like I think they're similar ages to your kids. They're still really young. And so letting them understand that school is not the end goal. We're going to do our best in whatever situation we're in. And I worked some shit jobs growing up, man. Like I threw hay bales. I ended up in the oil field in Alaska. I worked at a lawyer's office. I worked at a skate shop. I did coffee. I did maintenance in public schools. Like I did stuff that was like, it was great. It honestly was great. And there were days I did not want to go to work, all this kind of stuff. But every single thing that I did during that time, I learned something about. And I accidentally turned into a lifelong learner as a result of that. I have a lot of interests that I want to take a look at. And so that's really in the entrepreneurial space. Whenever you are overwhelmed, I hear people say you need to write. You need to sit down and write. And you need to acknowledge on paper the things that you are trying to figure out. When you are stuck, you need to read. You need to find something that gets your mind going and inspires you and whatever it is. And so even with my kids, that's the kind of stuff I want to get them doing as well, is like just constantly be having input and output. And who knows, man? I mean, how many times have you had a conversation with somebody that ended up being incredibly influential in your life and decision making years later? And it's just because at the coffee shop, at the conference, at the business event, at whatever, you know, you're just open to that potential input that may be a substantial change in your business or life.
You say that one conversation with one person changed. It jump started my business and also changed the way how I approach people and how I taught in a band program. So
tell me more, please.
So this one lady, Laura McBride, she was my principal. Absolutely loved her. My best principal I worked for. I was finishing up my master's in educational leadership, and I had to do some like internship work. So she gave me a sub for a day, let me come sit with her. And she sat me down. She goes, I'm going to take you through this situation for a moment. She gave me the top line, beginning of the situation. She goes, I want you to tell me how you'd handle it. Well, my smug ass goes, I would do it just like this. And I would go right here. She goes, that's interesting. She goes, okay, well, tell me more. Like, would you, and she just walked me through for a moment. And we were in our office. It was in an old building. It was a year before we moved to a big building. And we were just sitting in this tiny office in a corner. It was dark. It was old. And she goes, all right, well, and she had this note card from me. She goes, I want you to look at this note card. I want you to read the next thing. She goes, did you think about this? And I go, well, no. Like, why would I do? So she goes, and this was a real scenario that happened. So I don't want to go into detail, like with a kid and a student. Sure. Come to find out, the initial thing, a kid was going after another kid or whatever. We got layers deep into how to like objectively look at it. Next thing you know, like the kid, like they were being bullied by a bunch of other kids, that it went so deep that it came back to the teacher not allowing it to happen. And anyway, so that whole scenario taught me how to objectively think about conflict resolution, objectively think about how to handle every situation and pull every emotion out.
Yeah.
And just listen.
Yikes.
And so it was like, she was a detective. Like the best thing I could think is the detective police officer. And so it completely changed the way I ran my band programs after. And so I took that one scenario, integrated the band programs. Band programs grew. Like that's how it completely changed how I did things. Fast forward, when I started the business, my very first client came from her. And I still have him today. So she called me one day. He goes, hey, I noticed you're doing marketing. I have somebody I'm working for because she retired. Here's his information. And I was like, great. So I started working with it. He's my longest running client. I've had him forever. And she was able to connect me with my first client to help me start my business. So she helped me in two different ways. I've had this conversation with her. I don't think she remembers.
That's so cool, man.
I'm like, you just don't remember like what you've done for me and my my business and my family just off of like 2 conversations. One of the most powerful people, and I had to tell that story, although you're the guest, sorry. But
No,
I had to tell that story because
I mean, it highlights all of the things that I'm passionate about, which is what we've referred to for years as marketing for humans. And it's just the concept of like, we're human beings with lives and families and all these different things, working with people who are running businesses that have lives and families and all this kind of stuff, that are looking for people to do work with them. And the more that we separate that and get away from that. And I'm a huge fan of AI, but I've said this before, and I actually re-released Digital Marketing Sucks with an AI companion chapter that's called AI Won't Save You, but it can stop the bleeding. And it highlights that I believe a fundamental thing about AI is that it was meant to supplement the human experience, not replace it. And I know that there's ways of doing AI twins where you can kind of replicate yourself and people can have conversations with them. And I'm not opposed to any of that stuff when it's used in the correct context, but I've never had that big of an aha moment with AI that I have in having conversation with real people.
Yeah.
And there's certainly challenges with the complexities, like you said, of emotion and different things like that play into factors with business and people. But it's so important that we're having these conversations that you and I are having. And again, you're open to input from other people, not in necessarily every area of your life. I've never found a mentor that knocked it out of the park in every category. I've often had mentors in different categories of my life, whether that be, marriage and family or business or finances or whatever it is. Right. But I love it, man. I mean, again, it's the whole heartbeat of what you're doing with this podcast, of what's really brewing is what's important here. We're having those conversations.
Yeah, I agree. So tell me this, we're going to wrap up. I know we got a couple minutes. So tell me, like, give me a future pacing of Jake, not the business, because it's not like, I don't say you are the business, but you are. I don't care if you're the owner, but like, what's the future for Jake? It doesn't have to be business related, but like, where do you see yourself going? Give me next year and the next 5 years. Like, what's kind of in your brain at the moment that's driving you?
Yeah, one of the things I laid out a few years ago is I want to create space for people. And that's part of why my wife and I bought this building, is to create space. And that includes for younger generations and older generations, and teaching them the technology that they need to be successful in their lives and to be more efficient and different things like that. Also highlighting in-person events. That's something that we're prioritizing for 2026 and 2027. We're putting on Oregon Business Conference that is designed for the state of Oregon. I've been to a bunch of business conferences in Portland that were run by national organizations or national chains of conferences. They just missed the mark. One of them I left early. The speakers were conflicting with each other on opinions that were incredibly basic. I have no problem with that, right? I think it creates a different conversation, but it just wasn't cohesive. It wasn't unified. It wasn't Oregon, really, plain and simple. So that's something that we're trying to prioritize over the next year for sure. As I look at the next 5 years, I mean, at risk of sounding like a broken record, it's being a lifelong learner and understanding what those foundational values are in which I'm going to make decisions as opportunities arise. I have had a lot of opportunities come my way that I've ended up saying no to. And it was not without doing very strong due diligence of whether it was buying businesses or opening businesses or whatever. So also, as I look at where my kids are at in their stage of life, that's going to define a lot of what I do and the things that I invest in. And so I would love to open more businesses. I would love to do that. I think marketing is an awesome foundation to be able to open and run more businesses. But, more than that, it's creating space for people. And so if creating space means opening businesses so that people can have better jobs, or opening spaces so that there's a certain need that a community has that hasn't been met, and we're going to be able to do that. I'm finding, and I have found in the years of running businesses, that when you create space for people, it inevitably becomes an advantage for you. Whether it's karma, whether it's divine, whether it's whatever, man. when you invest in other people, it often becomes a positive thing for you, whether that is relationally, whether that's an opportunity, or whether that's financially. I've seen that. And so that's really a goal for me over the next 5 years.
I think we're on the same path.
Big time.
I think we're on the same path. We're on the same path. We want to have a real connection with education, our community locally.
Big time.
That's why, like, we're taking our marketing company more local. We want to help people locally and invest in the community. I think that's a big thing.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, man. That's episode 1. I'm gonna have to come up with like closing stuff. Like, we're all brewing something. Let's find out what we're brewing. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll come up with some.
I gotta come up with some
like
catchphrases.
The brewed reality. No, that's bad. I don't like that one.
I don't know. ChatGPT, I'll ask my buddy, and we'll come up with some.
Your buddy. What are good closing lines? Yeah.
What are good? They gave me a framework, but like I couldn't come up with like opening line. Whatever. It's gonna evolve.
What's really brewing?
Yep. Yeah. I don't have the voice for it though. I'm Southern redneck. It's like that's what's really brewing down here.
Like an emo kid from Alaska, dude. I got nothing. I would love to have like a cool sports announcer voice. Nope.
No, not at all.
Jordan, thanks for making space. I mean, again, thanks for making space. I'm excited to see where you go with the podcast, the guests that you have on. Honored to be the first one, man.
Yep. You were pretty much, it was between you and one other person. You won.
Tell me the name offline. I'm curious. No, I'm kidding.
All right. I appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you.